Live. This is One for the Record. I'm Diana, and today is December 22nd, 2012. It is Saturday evening. Here are your updates for today. On the Watchers, watching the world. Planet Earth now visible in stereo behind inner heliospheric imager. Large ash plume drifting from Copahu Volcano, Chile, Argentina. Winter solstice in Fairbanks, Alaska, December 21st, 2012. Nuclear reactor 4 at Swedish Ringhals power plant shut down following a seawater leak. Formula derived from Ramanujan's last work helped to better understand black holes. Alrighty then. The Extinction Protocol 2012 and beyond. Researchers say the Hawaiian Islands are slowly dissolving. Heads up. Winter solstice brings deadly cold wave to northern Europe. Also, season of misery southwest of England plagued by heavy rain and flooding. Copahu volcano erupts along Chile-Argentine border, alert level raised. Alrighty then. Unstable sea slab near Barrier Reef could cause monster tsunami in North Queensland. Alrighty then. Let's see here. I'll have to upload this one and then continue in a minute. I got someone here. Alrighty then, to continue. The Extinction Protocol. No, I did that one, I think. E&E News. The Energy News. Watching the world. Here we go. Fukushima, Japan. Here we go. December 22nd. Fukushima, Japan. Plutonium found in 311 disaster debris. Heads up. Also today, AP. People flee Japan nuclear disaster. Some can't get away. I feel so sorry for them. Alrighty then. Well, yesterday, Gunderson. Damage to Fukushima Unit 3 fuel racks could be from prompt moderate criticality. No objects falling in pool. What does TEPCO know that they haven't yet shown photos of? Alrighty then, moving on. Let's go to U.S. Canada. Okay. Yesterday, floating pier comes ashore in Washington. If experts don't get to it today, next chance is early January. Also, let's see, day before. Oh no. Alrighty then, can't help that one. It's always something. Alright, it's one day down for the weekend, one to go. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and attach the Dr. Bill Deagle show, because I did do it late last night for you guys. Alrighty then, have a great day, and I'll see you on the flip side tomorrow. Ooh, it's cold. It's cold in the Space Coast. It's going to get down to 34. Ooh.
You.com, and Alexander Bachman is joining us. Alexander Bachman, you're a Mexican national of Swedish origin. You speak Mexican and English. You have done amazing journalism and research on the spiritual issues, geopolitical, the drug cartels. Probably one of the broadest spectrums of backgrounds and knowledge on the spiritual as well as the geopolitical and other levels of almost any guest we have. And we're going to have popping in the show for just a few minutes Bob Thiel, Dr. Bob Thiel, who's a naturopathic doctor, member of the Church of God, and also a researcher, wrote his book called 2012 and the Rise of the Secret Sect, which he's giving free. If people call that number 800-675-2012, they'll get free shipping and a free book. You don't have to go to Amazon, spend $20 and pay delivery. They get it free. And I want to hear what your analysis of the end of 2012 is, because we've seen a lot of earth changes. We have a lot of crazy things going on, and then we're going to hear from Alexander Bachman as we head into the Christmas season. There was a ceremony today. You mentioned Alexander, and we're going to hear from you in a minute about the appointment of John Kerry, who's a skull and bonesman. And we want to hear some of the, how can I say, more titillating, nauseating facts about this man. So we realize that Satan and his minions are firmly ensconced in control of every government on earth. And that's why when people say, oh, gee, you can't vote for him, he's a high-level Mason. There is no politician in any country is not in one form or another, in one religion or another, a minion of Satan himself. So anybody who believes otherwise is delusional. And I want to hear from you first and tell us about the earth changes, space, weather, and the other things. And you got some new news. What's happening?
Okay, well, what's going on right now, just...
just a second now. We got Dr. Bob Thiel here. Hi, Bob.
Yes. Yeah, hi.
Just before we get going with you, Bob, because I know you got a lot of really interesting things, just want to hear from Ann. Do you have any new news, Ann, before we get ready to talk to Dr. Bob and Alexander Bachman?
Yeah, we have crossed into we're past the point of the winter solstice. So all those people with solar panels need to start thinking about February 1st, because they'll need to reset the angle on their solar panels. But we have not crossed the boundary of the perihelion, which will occur the second week in January. The perihelion is where the Earth is closest to the sun. And you might not think that would matter, but it does. I was listening to KWGN in Denver, and the weather person on there was saying that you can't go out without sunburn protection. Now, that probably sounds a little strange. It sounds a little strange to me. But you have to remember that they're a mile high, and so the air is a lot thinner.
Yeah, but also there's two bands of radiation. Stan Deo mentioned this, and also I got corroboration by Professor McCanney. Since 1992, UV bands, they've been dramatically increasing, and now the ozone layer is thinner. If you had a major CME that strobes ultraviolet light, solar background radiation, and X-rays that come from the sun, we could get fried in midday. In other words, there's going to come a day, and I can't tell you what day it'll be, whether it's years or months away, but we're going to have a day when the magnetic field of the Earth will be weak enough, and there'll be a strobing of the Earth with ultraviolet light that it will destroy our grassy plants and crops, just like it says in the Bible. That day is coming.
Well, actually, I was watching my plants this last summer because the UV was so strange. And what's happening is that the UV is, because the ozone hole, we have an ozone hole now in the Arctic, the stratosphere is so thin that the UV is not being, the deep UV is not being used up to create ozone, and that's why the ozone layer is thinning. And they said that what you'll see is that you'll see the leaves on your trees and bushes turn black. And
well, part of that is also ground level ozone's increasing, because when the ultraviolet light, which higher energy isn't blocked in the higher atmosphere, it gets to ground and it generates ground level ozone on top of the UV damage that occurs.
Well, that's right. Anyway, this weather person in Denver, she said, and that is because you have to think about sunscreen, because we're almost at the closest point of the Earth to the sun. So they're starting. They're starting to use that as an excuse for the fact that the UV is getting through the atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing. Okay, we have Dr. Bob. You have some interesting comments, and I can just tell you're chomping at the bit, because you mentioned when I talked to you after yesterday's show on hour 1 Thursday that you have some important comments to mention as we segue into Alexander Bachman and his comments about the new Secretary of State nominee, who's a skull and bonesman. So, Dr. Bob, I'm sure you have new things, because you're you're a hound for sniffing out news that fits in the biblical matrix, and that's why you've done such great work in your books.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Bill. Anyway, what I thought I would share today is we still have about 48 minutes before the Mayan calendar actually ends. So it hasn't actually quite ended yet. But there are at least 2 or 3 predictions that some attached to it that have not been proven to be true so far today.
Right.
And I'll just briefly go through those. There's a group of Chinese. The Chinese government partially detained or arrested between 500 and 1,000 of them a couple of days ago. and these people believe actually that Jesus Christ returned as a woman, believe it or not, and that today the sun was supposed to rise in the west, and when I got up this morning I checked and it rose in the east, or it looks like it rises, of course, and so that didn't happen. And the other is that there were supposed to be massive power outages in China, and so everybody went and bought candles because they're supposed to have 3 days of darkness, and that's not happened yet. I also checked the earthquake reports from the government on this, and so far today, the biggest one, there were 2 5.0s over in Japan, but again, nothing out of the ordinary. And when you and I were talking about 2012, this date a few days ago, we both said, look, there might be some storms today, there might be some earthquakes. Where I am in California right now is very sunny. It doesn't look like we're about to experience the Mayan flood that the Shilam Balim warned of. Of course, it didn't necessarily tell you what day it was going to be, and I guess it's supposed to rain tomorrow. But living in California, as you and I both do, it does rain here in December.
It's actually really good, and usually rains very short times, usually in the evening. I mean, it's like when you get it, it's like, oh my gosh, isn't this wonderful? We got rain. I mean, most other people are saying, oh man, it's rain. And we say, and we're in California, say, this is a novelty. Man, it's raining. This is great.
Right, so we can use the rain, and of course, it helps clear out the air as well. So
yeah, exactly.
as far as 2012 goes, because it's kind of like my final update on the 2012 on your show, because next time I'm on your show, this will all be over with.
Right, we'll be dealing with real issues, and I'm sure you've got some interesting books coming down the road, Pike. We won't talk about what they are, but
I do.
Prophetic revelation is still unwinding, and what people need to use is they need to use their intellect, which you do very well, and they need to use the Bible as their standard, not the false prophecies of Mayans, Hopi. Nostradamus used divination techniques to fight from the ancient book of mysteries that the Chaldeans used, the high priests of Egypt, against Moses. They need to use their own spiritual connection, their conscience, and their prayer life after they've used their intellect to actually study the Bible and just general facts that are historically known. That's why we have experts like yourself, Dr. Bob, and experts like Jonathan Gray, who's been on the program, who's a astronomical and historical and archaeological expert.
Well, I won't take too much more time, but there's just 2 or 3 points I wanted to mention, and then turn it back over to the other guests.
Yeah, if you can stay around, though, because we're going to open things up, because we want to also have, by the way, open lines today if people want to ask questions on any particular topic, because, it is the end of the world.
Well, and of course, because it's not the end of the world, this is one of the things all this Mayan stuff is about, and that's that people are going to scoff at those of us who believe in biblical prophecies. You mentioned earlier, in an earlier segment, the toll-free number for our book, and as I said, your listeners can go to Amazon and pay $20, and that's great. Or if they want it free, it's nearly 400 pages. All I have to do is call 800-675-2012.
Source for independent talk radio for over a decade. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Welcome back, and a very important statement you made on the break. I want you to repeat it, Dr. Bob Thiel, and you had a follow-up to that, Alexander Bachman. Dr. Bob, let's roll. What you really said is extremely prescient. This is very important to understand this, because they're not just interested in trying to get rid of the, quote, the conspiracy theorists and the idiots who believed in the Mayan end of the world. Their real goal is to destroy religion and the belief that 1/3 of the Bible is prophecy. So if you're a Mayan nut, you'll believe in that Bible, won't you? And so that's the real issue. They don't want us to think. They don't want us to respond. They don't want us to even look for things like the mark of the beast or a judgment by fire or the rise of a beast empire. They don't want us to see any of it while it's happening right before our eyes. Dr. Bob, expand on that, because I think you have a very good statement on that.
All right, well, while I was on the air with you this time, a news item just popped up, and that's what we were talking about. It says, quote, the 4-minute video from the NASA labels December 21st Mayan apocalypse as a hoax and explains how the rumor began. Okay, now we all know the world's not going to end today, and that's fine, and I've been saying that for years, and I've been saying it on your show for years, and plus in my book. But the problem with this is that the idea about a Mayan apocalypse was not a hoax that somebody just invented and spread rumors. There was a researcher in 1906 who looked at the Mayan Dresden Codex, last page, said this is predicting the apocalypse. And again, we who believe in the Bible know that that's not accurate, but for the media to say that this all was just a hoax is really an attempt to scoff at all prophecy. And that's the deal. Is the secularists keep coming out and saying the Mayans never predicted it, and there's some non-secularists, but mostly it's the secularists who don't believe in the Bible or don't believe in God, who are saying, well, you know, this is just a hoax, and the Mayans really didn't predict the end of the world. The Mayans absolutely predicted the end of the world. Now, we can argue for sure if it meant today or not, but I've got writings from the Mayans that say that the world is going to end. Okay, so they did predict the end of the world. Not all the Mayans, perhaps not the ones in the 5th century, but some of the later ones did. And so that's what 2012 is really about. It's part of, in my view, a satanic plan to get people to scoff against prophecy. So when the Great Tribulation is about to begin, and God's prophets start to rub and say, hey, this is the deal, people are going to say, oh, come on. Nothing happens with Y2K.
You're one of those people.
Wrong, and you're, you know, the Mayan prophecy.
I had some idiot email me just the other day to say, Deagle, who do you think you are? You predicted that Nibiru was going to come by on December 21st. And I said nothing of the sort.
Yeah,
they obviously weren't listening at all. In fact, I said the exact opposite. What I said is we have a danger of coronal mass ejections from solar storms with or without an asteroid, comet, or a near-Earth object. We do have the approach of objects that cause cataclysmic events every 3,612 years, which is coming in the near future. I don't know when. We do have the danger of the magnetic reversal, which at a current rate could take up to 1,100 years, but it's speeding up, so it could be much sooner. We have a giant ozone hole that's appearing over the Arctic and Antarctic, and a magnetic hole that's 3 million square miles that's luckily not at ground level over the South Atlantic. These are not conspiracy theories. In fact, what the government's done is not only shutting down, and they have these disinformation officers in the media to try to crush alternative media, because we're the real media. CNN, Fox News Network, etc., they're the false news networks. They are full of it. And what we do is ask tough questions. Our knowledge is limited, but a lot less limited than you think, because we have officers inside government departments, Homeland Security, the Pentagon, and others, and coming under pseudonyms and sources, and some of them supernatural, that provide us information that we can corroborate, that gives us a much bigger picture than the government and the global controlling Satanists want us to have. And when we ask even just better questions, what we get is, and I just looked at that today, there's a big page here of things about asteroids, and it says, how to defend Earth from asteroids. Asteroids giveth and asteroids take away. Target Earth. I mean, this is a whole page just of Google News today, just on asteroids. And the reason is, and they even show up on the NASA sites, all these asteroids. Oh, don't be worried about it. And they show these pictures of asteroids that we had one 2 weeks ago that whipped past the Earth at a hair's breadth distance away, and yet they want us to just ignore it. Oh, just go back to sleep now. Don't bother yourself. Don't worry about it. If an asteroid strikes and it causes a destruction of the ozone layer or destroys Luxembourg, no problem. Just go back to sleep, little sheep. Eventually we'll shear you and then we'll cook you in a spit. I mean, it's sickening. And I'm totally fed up with dealing with media. To me, we're the real media. We ask tough questions. We're not going to stop them. If we have to encrypt our things and even put them on a CD because they close down, shortwave and the internet and everything, they'll never close us down. They'll never do it. And even from the other side, if they, quote, if they kill Deagle and other broadcasters like Alex Jones and Rents and everybody else, we'll speak from the grave, because the Lord will resurrect us and bring us back. I mean, there's no way they're going to shut us up.
And another thing, I mean, people have to read their Bibles a little bit to understand that all the alignments, be it a star, be it a planet, or be it a galaxy, are moved by God and nobody else. I mean, just read Isaiah, read Job, and start reading your Bible.
Well, yeah, but let me talk about some alignments that are in the approximate range right now. We're in the approximate time period of the 105,000 major ice age cycle called the Milankovitch cycle. We're in the 10,800 year cycle for ice ages. We're in the 360-year mini ice age modern type cycle for ice ages. We are heading into a cooling period that will last to 2066, 2670. That's a fact. You can just see it in the weather across.
Orion came out of the horizon, and it's a very, very important part of the processional equinox for those that are in the.
No, I researched it, by the way, and found out that every 62 million years, the arm of the galaxy, which we are on, we're midway down that arm, passes through the galactic plane, and we go into a different area, what's called the torsion field of the galaxy. We're literally into a different form or shape, if you want a conformation of space-time. And as we pass through that, which, by the way, doesn't happen on a day, it takes 30 to 40 years. We've been in this transition for already about 15 to 20 years, and we'll be still in it for another 15 to 20 years. But we have, and I have this from my own classified and scientific articles I've pulled up, a 30 times increased risk of an asteroid or comet strike. 30 times. So on an average day, you have a chance of 1 in 22,000 of a large comet. I'm talking about large enough that it's not the size of a pickup truck, but it's big enough to take out, it's half the size of a football field or larger, of taking out a good chunk of a city or whatever if it strikes. Okay, remember the Earth is pretty big. That chance is increased by 30 times for the last 15 to 20 years, and will continue for another 15 to 20 years, plus the change in the torsion field, which is called the Higgs field, the gravitonic field of dark matter. That is the same field, the Higgs field, that forms wormholes. It is the basic structure of the galaxy, of black holes in the center of the galaxy and white holes that emerge in every star and every planet, where matter and energy re-emerge from these wormholes created from the dark center of each galaxy, which is 2.5% of the mass of every galaxy, no matter how small or how large. As we transition, the plasma physics of our sun is going to change, which means not today, the 21st, but in the next number of years, we are at dramatically higher risk of a major superstorm on the sun. The likelihood of a kill shot, even just glancing by Earth in the next, say, 5 or 10 years, is astronomically going to go up. If we don't harden our grid, which 3.5, 4 years ago, they passed a bill with the Democratic-run Senate and Congress. It was killed by Lisa Murkowski, the rhino senator from Alaska, to not harden our grid against CMEs, when Michio Kaku and 40,000 scientists like him that belong to the organizations in America that begged Congress and Senate to get back on the stick on this. If there's one thing I got to tell them, if you don't get on this right away, and we have a major CME, all you don't even need a plague or a war or anything, it's just a grid to go down, or satellite communications or our internet go down, all that crash, we're going to have pandemonium.
Well, I worry about North Korea having an EMP-capable ballistic missile right now that can hit the U.S.
Yeah, but remember now, this is the level of let me explain EMP on what it'll affect. EMP will first affect our satellites, second affect our power grid because it can't stand the surge. Even a solar storm, just a solar storm, not even a CME, but just a big solar storm, they have to turn down the power output from our nuclear reactors or they'll burn out the transformers. Did you know that?
Yes, absolutely.
Just a solar storm. So if we have a big CME, so those will go right away. The last to go, believe it or not, will be your car and maybe your home computer equipment that doesn't have electronics. And you have to have a really big blast to knock out private electronics. But your grid, it's going.
Your
satellite communications, they're gone. So what you're talking about, your car may turn on. You may be able to have separate power and solar panels to run your little iPad, but you don't have any grid anymore. You don't have gas because those gas station pumps won't work.
If you're tired of searching for great talk radio, something more important, search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Well, it's already happening right now.
Yeah, I waited to say that. Dr. Bobby had a comment, and then we want to hear from Alexander Bachman. Dr. Bobby had a comment about that.
That doesn't seem to work really well. So with what's going on in the Middle East right now, Russia providing the missiles over to Syria, we may see a really messy conflict over there. And, the Syrians, or at least the Syrian president, may decide he has no other choice but to try to use them. And I know the United States, and, because of what we've done in Libya and stuff, we're going to be safe.
Well, you know what I'm predicting? I'm going to predict something totally opposite of what everybody else is saying. I'm expecting not the outbreak of war, but the outbreak of a false peace. I'm expecting the outbreak of
war first.
Well, whenever death and destruction, it will be so minimal it won't precipitate nuclear war. In other words, it'll be sub-threshold. Whatever level of death and destruction, it won't be the release of bioweapons on the whole planet or a regional exchange of nuclear weapons. With the Alexander missile placed there, the NATO and the U.S. are screwed. They cannot start a conflict and be able to finish it now. The Russians don't even need it's what we call it, how do you say checkmate in Russian? You say checkmate, Amerikansky. Okay, it's over. It's over. Now people are saying, oh, well, Syria and Assad falls. Who cares? If Assad falls, he's an eye doctor. There's tens of thousands of his relatives and friends right back to his father's regime that cannot be taken out. And they know that if they lose, they'll die. So they're going to fight to the death. So what people need to understand is that if Syria falls, you're going to see Syrian and Iranian, Russian-made bioweapons released upon the whole planet. You'll see not tens of thousands, not even tens of millions. I'm talking about hundreds of millions of people worldwide die in extreme, nasty bioweapon plagues. And one of the nastiest weapons that Russia developed was, believe it or not, what's called a zombie weapon. And I'm going to explain this today because I was told this by my classified contacts. They were experimenting back in as early as the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And both the Americans and the Russians are doing this on taking rabies and making it into a super weapon. So what it would do is it wouldn't kill you right away. It would literally eat your cortex. And what happens when it eats your cortex is you turn into a zombie. You no longer have a cortex, but you're still alive. And you become a bloodthirsty animal. And believe it or not, they do have this weapon. This is not imaginary. Now, that's only one of many horrifying weapons. I mean, I know about the T-virus project where it paralyzes you so you suffocate and that's how you die. I know about all kinds of very nasty weapons. But all of these are in the hands of the Syrians and Iranians. If Syria falls, Iranians are going to be chucking missiles. And by the way, a lot of those missiles are not going to be Iranian. They're going to be Pakistani. Okay? And no, it's not going to happen. What I'm expecting is the outbreak of a false peace. The Russians and Chinese cannot tolerate it. Before you'll see Syria fall, you'll see Chinese troops fighting NATO and American troops in Syria. I'm going to predict that.
Let me interject one thing that you said, which is with 2012. So today is December 21st, 2012.
Right.
As you know, one of the things that I felt was going to happen because of the 2012 thing is we are going to hear various false declarations of peace. Starting with the New Age movement within the next day or so.
They're going to declare that we're in a new world where all of a sudden we're in a higher realm and we've received the ascension, which is crap. There's no ascension, and this is the whole purpose of Christmas, is the Prince of Peace has to come or there will never be peace on Earth. Mankind, no matter how advanced this technology, can create wormholes and leap across the galaxy, will never have peace without the God in the flesh, Yeshua HaMashiach, which means Jesus Christ, which means the Father incarnated as flesh, returns and brings peace to earth. It will never happen. Never. It doesn't matter if it's 1,000 or 1,000,000 years from now. There will never be peace on earth, and mankind is in a terminal state. We have a disease. It's called terminal state of sin. Our nation and our world are dying of sin. America's not going to fall because it's lost its military. It's not going to fall because even the loss of its economy. It's going to fall from corruption and evil. I mean, we have a president that believes in infanticide, that believes that he can cry over these kids in Newton, Connecticut. At the same time, he believes in a policy where one person who's, quote, Al-Qaeda suspiciously, he doesn't mind taking out a freaking entire block, including children and women, of apartment buildings just to get one so-called Al-Qaeda guy. It's just considered collateral damage. And we hear, people like Albright say, oh, well, 500,000 kids died after the first Gulf War. Well, that's considered, a reasonable price to be paid that 500,000 children died. And it's probably more like 2.5 million.
George Bush Jr., when he had dinner with Cheney one time in a luncheon when they were doing the mass kill over there of civilians in Iraq, they even boasted about it and said, how many did Hitler get? And they started laughing and heckling, because they don't laugh, they heckle. They're demons, and these people
that's because these are people of clay and iron. And the reason why God told me to call the book Clay and Iron is because we're with these avatared beings that rule our politicians and rule our world and our boardrooms of our corporations are human flesh. The clay or human flesh stretched over the satanic iron bodies of demonic transdimensional entities, of succubi, incubi, and other high-level demonic evil beings.
And now let me pass this code on to the people. Go to alexanderbachman.com. You'll see a code there. It's the Magog code that I deciphered and I downloaded. Supernaturally, just go and download it, and you analyze it later. But let me just get this in. Jim Carrey today was put into power by Hillary Clinton, okay, by orders of her, obviously. She appointed him. Jim Carrey is Skull and Bones. So you have a Skull and Bones secretary of
John Kerry.
Yeah, John Kerry. You have him as a Skull and Bones member, and this guy went through the most perverse rituals, same as the Bushes, same as all of them, over there at the Skull and Bones 322, the tomb, they call it, at Yale University.
Right. And by the way, I've got a new term for him. I call him Frankencarry, because you look at the guy and said, if he had a few little, you know, the makeup things with a little art with the stitches, he could be a dead ringer for Frankenstein.
But look at the date. On 11/11/11, the Secretary of Internal Government in Mexico died mysteriously in a helicopter crash, right, in Baja California. Right. John Blake.
Ceremonial date, by the way.
Ceremonial date. It was exactly 1 year, 11 months, and 1 month and 11 days before the year of today. So it's all a ritual. You see, they're putting people in power based on alignments and rituals in the sky. That's what they're doing. And
Right. In other words, everything is ley lines, everything is numerology, everything is Kabbalah, everything is basically astrological alignments and angles. And this basically is their, quote, their religion, is to use these to say, yes, we are the prescient gods of this world. And they're trying to say, see, we perform these events, we perform these things on specific dates and times. So the appointment of John Kerry, I call Frankencarry, is a perfect example of where we're going. The same guy who would literally talk about his sexual, how can I say it, imaginings in a tomb, masturbating while saying these satanic prayers in the, quote, crypt, which is part of Skull and Bones, the same as George Bush Jr. This is the kind of monster we want. Yeah, this is the kind of monster that we want to have as our Secretary of State. Let me tell you, Hillary Clinton has, when I met her personally, had the largest demon I've ever seen in her. And that's why, of course, she's too sick to talk about Benghazi. She's got Benghazziitis.
Well, remember how she laughed after Libya? She heckled.
Oh, yeah. She said after she knew that the steel rod was shoved up after they literally raped Gaddafi, she was like, ha, ha, ha. She had a psychic orgasm because she has had experience of too many sex magic rituals and human sacrifices in her Rodham family. Your comments.
Dopamine, yeah.
She had a massive dopamine surge, and she went, oh, man, that was good. That was better than a hit of cocaine. Better than 3 lines. Dr. Bob, your comment over this, because we're going to continue these shows in the next number of months. Well, where do you think all this is going?
Well, where it's all going is eventually the United States is going to keep turning further and further from God. And, you know, the point of my book, is, as you know, was to tell people, look, the world is not going to end today. And when it doesn't end, don't believe those who are going to go out there and say false, you know, promise false peace, which is not going to happen. And don't believe those who are going to discount all prophecy.
Right.
So just as what my comment, which is similar to two that you guys made a few moments ago, which is people should turn back to the Bible. And
turn back to God. Their first pepper supply should be God.
And so I'd like to do one more plug for the free book, because this is the last time I'm going to promote this book on your show, because even though most of my book, 90% of my book has nothing to do with 2012. It's what happens after 2012.
It's after you.
Right. If your listeners have a pen, if they write down 1-800-675-2012, they get a free book. You're going to get a machine, so if it's busy, just call again. No one's going to sell you anything. All we're asking is for your name and address. You do not get on a mailing list, so all you got to do is dial 800-675-2012, and it's totally free. And they can see how Satan has certain prophecies out there, and how it's going to deceive, how many people are going to rely on those out of the Bible.
Want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. By the way, the most important thing is sharpen your intellect, stay in prayer, and realize prophecy has been sent as a